Alrighty, guys, welcome to my 2017 NFL mock draft. So the draft is gonna be soon. I don't know. I hope I can get this video up before the draft. Otherwise, very depressed. But yeah, I decided to do a mock draft now. First things first. This is only gonna be the first 16 picks in the draft. I'm only doing the first round. These are the first 16 picks because if I did all 32 at the same time, the video would be 40 minutes long. So, yeah. Second, I am not a professional analyst or anything. I just go off what those analysts think and what websites think and what I've heard and what I've managed to gather. So don't get mad at me if the player you want is not selected by your team. Instead, let's have a nice rational conversation in the comment section down below, okay? Alright. Anyways, let's start off. Number 1. The first overall pick, the Cleveland Browns select. Dun, 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 I'm kidding. Defensive end, Myles Garrett. No duh. Myles Garrett is by far the best player in the draft. He's a freak of nature. And let's just say the Browns need it. They were third worst in sacks last year. They gave up the 12th most passing yards per game. They gave up the most passing touchdowns. They gave up the second most rushing yards per game. Third most, yeah, you get it. Their defense was god awful. And Garrett last year had 18 solo, 15 assisted, 33 total tackles, 15 for a loss, 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles in 10 games. This guy is going to be a monster pass rusher, and the Browns need it, especially now. Having him should form a nice duo with I forgot they have 2 other players on the team who had 6 sacks last year. So adding Garrett plus those 2 guys should be a very solid foundation. Yeah, it was actually no, it was just Sorry, it was one guy. It was Ogba who had 6 sacks last year. So Garrett should add a lot more. With the second overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers select defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. Now, Jonathan Allen originally during early in the year, it was looking like he was definitely the second best prospect, and then I think he got injured or something, and his stock has fallen. But I still think he is the second best prospect. And the 49ers defense last year struggled stopping the run. They were the worst team when it came to allowing rushing yards per game. They allowed the most rushing touchdowns in the entire season, and they allowed the most points per game, 30. And I think they were the only team who allowed 30 or more points per game. Yeah. Their passing defense wasn't unbelievable. Actually, they didn't give up a lot of passing yards. And they did get a little bit amount of sacks, but they were also the only team that allowed more than 400 yards per game. Jonathan Allen fixes that. Not only is he the best defensive tackle in this draft, he is a great defensive lineman. His stats last year: 33 solo tackles, 36 assisted tackles, 69 total tackles. 16 of those were for a loss. He had 10.5 sacks in 15 games. Allen is going to add a balance of pass rushing and run stopping to this team, which they desperately need. And the Niners, I know people are going to say, you don't have a franchise quarterback. But at the same time, I mean, you need, this is one of your biggest needs. And I think, who knows? Also, of course, the rumors with them going to be getting Kirk Cousins. I don't think Kirk Cousins is staying on the Redskins from what I've heard. I think he will leave. So that's why I'm assuming that the Niners might be able to get Kirk in free agency. So I'm going with, I think they address a big need here. And that would also form a trio of defensive or first round picks that are D linemen. In 2015, they drafted Arik Armstead, 17th overall. Last year, they drafted DeForest Buckner, 7th overall. So this was going to form a nice trio of D linemen. Both Buckner and Brooks last year had 6 sacks. Their defense could be very scary in the future. And I mean, how do you beat teams like Brady? You need to have an elite defense. Falcons learned that the hard way. And every team that played the Patriots. Yeah. Now, number 3 is the Chicago Bears, and they select safety Jamal Adams. Adams is by far, well, not by far, but he is the most talented safety in a draft that is very, very deep at this position. Now, the Browns defense last year didn't allow a lot. I'm sorry, the Bears, not the Browns. The Bears defense last year, they were a very good team when it came to allowing passing yards, but they didn't get a lot of interceptions. They only had 8 interceptions. They allowed a lot of points per game. They were a bad run-stopping team or a mediocre run-stopping team. Maybe not, terrible. Now, looking at Adams' stats in 2016, he had 42 solo, 34 assisted, 76 total tackles, 7.5 for a loss, 1 sack, 1 interception, 4 pass deflections, and a forced fumble in 12 games. He can do many things. Having Jamal Adams at number 3 would not only give the Bears and we all know the Bears, they go defense over offense, as evidenced by their best quarterback or statistical quarterback of all time being Jay Cutler. Yeah. But Adams is going to add another freak of nature on that defense. And the Bears, they love their defense. The Bears love their defense. That's why it says the. It's the the letter D capitalized A, Bears. Now, number 4, the Jacksonville Jaguars select the first offensive player in the draft, and that's running back Leonard Fournette. Now, I'm actually one of the few people who doesn't like Fournette that much. I think he is, I've heard what he could be, possibly a new Ezekiel Elliott, which would be great for whoever drafts him. But I actually like Christian McCaffrey a lot better than him, and I think Dalvin Cook also could be, in terms of what they've done. But I think Fournette will still be a very good player, and with his draft stock, I can see that he's probably going to be the first running back taken. And the Jaguars could use him. Now, Jacksonville's offense last year, in terms of running the ball, they were 22nd in rushing yards per game. They had the second least amount of rushing touchdowns, or they were tied for at least. They were eighth worst in points per game, and 23rd worst in yards per game. That's pretty bad. But their defense was very solid. So I can't see them going defense here. And even if they need defensive players, this is a very deep draft, especially in edge, rushers, and defensive backs. This draft is loaded with them. So Fournette, he didn't have the greatest 2016 stats. I mean, it was pretty good considering he only played 7 games. He had 843 yards on 129 rushes for 8 touchdowns. But he had some very impressive stats the years before, and I think he should be a solid player to help out Mr. Blake Bortles and that offense there in Jacksonville. Number 5, the Tennessee Titans select cornerback Marshon Lattimore. The Titans get this pick from the Los Angeles Rams. Titans were almost won the division last year, but of course they do have the pick from the Rams, as I just said. So that sucks for the Rams. Imagine they had this pick. They might be scary next year. But the Titans' defense last year was okay. They allowed the third most passing yards per game. They were 18th in interceptions, 14th most passing touchdowns, which is actually not that bad actually. They were kind of they were very middle of the pack when it came to points per game, and also pretty middle of the pack when it came to total yards per game. But this season they signed cornerback Logan Ryan, but Logan Ryan's 30 years old, and he's not an elite corner. I'd say he's a solid corner, but he's not gonna shut everybody down. Now Lattimore's 2016 stats are as follows: 30 solo, 11 assisted, 41 total tackles. He had 4 interceptions and 9 pass deflections in 13 games. He is the best cornerback in this draft, according to a lot of analysts. And again, this is a very deep cornerback draft as well, so I can see them going Lattimore here. He also fits the scheme from what I've heard. And, I think a lot of people think the Titans have 2 pretty good picks, 2 picks in the first round this year. They need one, I think, adjusts the defense, and one gets Mariota a threat. You'll see later on. Right. I think so. I think you'll see later on in this video. I'm not sure. No, you'll see in the next video who I drafted for them. Yeah, you'll see who I drafted at 18th for them. But number 6, I have 2 favorite teams. One of my favorite teams, the New York Jets, will select Malik Hooker, safety Malik Hooker. Now, the Jets obviously have a lot of needs. The quarterback situation is not ideal. Their secondary is pretty rubbish. Rubbish. They also could use an edge rusher, but lucky for them, this draft very deep in those defensive players. Now, I've actually kind of more opened up recently to maybe the Jets selecting quarterback Deshaun Watson at the spot, but I'm still going with Malik Hooker as my top choice for number 6. Now, the Jets' defense last year wasn't that bad, actually. The defense was very solid, considering the offense had the most interceptions in the league, and yeah, when you have a lot of interceptions, your defense has to be, common sense. A equals B. A plus B equals C. Common sense. But the Jets were not a great team in terms of allowing passing yards. They allowed a lot of touchdowns. They weren't a terrible passing yard per game. They didn't have a lot. They didn't give up too many, but they didn't shut them down. They allowed the 5th most points per game, I should say. They had the second least amount of interceptions. And they had a solid run defense. Now, Malik Hooker adds in a very good safety. Now, he was tied for 10th, or sorry, Hooker, his 2016 stats were follows like this. He had 43 solo, 31 assisted, 74 total tackles. He had 7 interceptions, 4 pass deflections. Yeah, he had some pretty good stats. Now, with the Jets, of course, the most interceptions the Jets had last year for one person was 2, which is not good, obviously. And adding Malik Hooker would really help, especially considering the Jets just lost Darrelle Revis. Marcus Gilchrist is probably going to be out, and Calvin Pryor is starting to look a bit like a bust, even though he should be more of the in-the-box safety. So adding Hooker, you have that ball hawk, and Pryor can be that in-the-box safety, and the Jets could have a nice 1-2 safety pair. Who knows, maybe, I don't think they'll be as good as Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, but they could be a solid, copycat of them, I guess you could say. Number 7, the Los Angeles Chargers select defensive end Solomon Thomas. Now, Thomas has recently emerged as as probably the second best draft pick, or his second best overall prospect, according to several mock drafts. I see him going second, but I think the Chargers could use him here, and I think he may fall. Well, he falls in my mock draft. Now, the Chargers weren't a terrible defensive team last year. They were 14th in sacks, but 10.5 came from defensive end Joey Bosa, who was the defensive player they drafted a year before. So, obviously, adding in Thomas, you now have 2 amazing defensive ends. You're going to get a lot of sacks from them. But the big key is they allowed a lot of points per game, as you can see. They had a lot of interceptions. They were the best team when it came to interceptions. Casey Howard, I think, had 7, but they had a total of 18 interceptions. So, adding in somebody like Thomas also could help maybe. I mean, the run defense was solid, but they gave up a lot of touchdowns, and that's the key, and points. So, their defense isn't bad from a yards per game perspective, but they gave up a lot of touchdowns, and that's something in points, obviously. So, that's something, of course, that comes with the turnovers. So, Thomas would not only help that out, but also maybe give Joey Bosa Joey Bosa had 10.5 sacks. It's a lot of sacks. Maybe give Joey Bosa a little bit of a leeway when it comes to pass rushing. Maybe they won't have to pressure him, or the teams won't double team on him or put 2 O linemen on him, which they may start doing because he's pretty good. But if Malik Hooker isn't selected, I think they definitely draft him. He'd be the perfect replacement for Eric Weddle. But, of course, I just took him here. Number 8, the Carolina Panthers select wide receiver Mike Williams. Williams is regarded as the best receiver in the draft, according to several people. And the Panthers' offense last year struggled when it came to passing. They threw a lot of interceptions. They didn't have a lot of touchdowns. They were decent when it came to points per game, but they weren't, great. And when you have Cam Newton, Superman Cam on your team, that kind of, you need threats for him. And also, they went from 15-1 to 6-10. They went from being the second best in the league to not even being the best in their division, the worst in their division. So, yeah. Now, Williams' 2016 stats, he had 98 catches for 1,361 yards and 11 touchdowns in 15 games, catching passes from Deshaun Watson. Now, if the Panthers were to do this, they would have him, Kelvin Benjamin, and Russell Shepard as their nice trio of a receiving core. Obviously, that would be nice along with Cam Newton. A lot of people saying they should draft the running back. I don't see it here. I mean, if the Fournette's here, maybe, but I think they need a receiver more, or they need a defensive back more. But of course, they could always go deeper in the draft for that. Now, number 9, the Cincinnati Bengals take a big risk here and select offensive tackle Cam Robinson. Now, Robinson has been drawing a lot of comparisons to tackle Eric Flowers, who was on one of my other favorite team, the New York Giants. Now, Flowers is having a lot of struggles, and Robinson could be another Eric Flowers, or he could turn out better. Now, the Bengals gave up a lot of sacks last year, 41 for that matter. But they didn't throw a lot of interceptions, but they didn't throw a lot of passing touchdowns. Their rushing game was pretty solid, and they were a solid offensive team, But recently this offseason, they lost 2 big offensive linemen. And one of those is their veteran left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, who left to the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Robinson, ideally for them in this situation, would come in and provide solid tackle play, and would be a great replacement could be a great replacement for Andrew Whitworth if he turns out right. And, I think the Bengals, they just need to fix, I don't know, last year was a weird year for them. They weren't bad, but they weren't good. They were kind of like that team that's just mediocre, like the Cardinals in that way. Now, number 10, the Buffalo Bills select linebacker Reuben Foster. Now, the Bills weren't a bad offensive team next year, I should say. Or last year, not next year. Well, but their defense struggled when it came to stopping the run. They gave up a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing touchdowns, but they were able to stop passing. And, that's something you need. So, their passing defense was good, but their rushing defense was god-awful. They got torched by Le'Veon Bell, Jay Ajayi. Now, Reuben Foster's 2016 stats, he had a lot of tackles. I'm not even going to say how many tackles he had. He is going to be a beast. He's the best linebacker in the draft, or inside linebacker, I should say, in the draft. He definitely will add something to the team. I mean, their linebacker core is going to be pretty cool. I mean, it's going to be pretty solid. I mean, you got Lorenzo Alexander, who just came off a Pro Bowl year when he had double-digit sacks, while Reuben Foster can really help shut down the run. I mean, with that defensive line, you should be able to shut down the run. The Bills could surprise people next year, considering they were able to keep Tyrod Taylor. I know a lot of people are going to say maybe the Bills should draft a player, a partner for Sammy Watkins. Sorry, I lost the word there. But I think, they could go with someone like Corey Davis, John Ross, but I think in this case, drafting someone to help solidify your defense, especially with a new head coach coming in, you need that linebacker, and Reuben Foster could be a very, very solid player. At number 11, the New Orleans Saints, with their first pick in this draft, in the first round, select cornerback Marlon Humphrey. Now, Humphrey could be a bit of a risk here. I know I couldn't find. It was kind of hard for me to distinguish who the second best corner in this draft was, but I went with Humphrey. Now, the Saints' defense was terrible last year. Their offense was first in total yards per game, first in passing yards per game, and top 5 in points per game. And yet they went 7-9. Their defense was bottom. Their offense was, it was like, oh gosh. Their offense was amazing, but their defense was terrible. Now, that reason for that, they gave up a lot of yards, and they were bad. Now, Humphrey, obviously, they just need more talent. They just need more talent, And I think adding a cornerback in Marlon Humphrey would be great, You get someone to shut down. I mean, in the division, you got lots of great, you got Julio Jones to worry about. You've got, whoever the Panthers, maybe not the best, but then you've got Mike Evans as well. You need to shut down corner. And I think Humphrey, if he does, I mean, I could also see him going with Gary and Conley here, and I'm starting to think Gary and Conley might be better than Humphrey, but Humphrey was also a pretty solid player. Number 12, the Browns with their second pick in this video, and they are going to get John Ross, wide receiver. Now, Ross is listed as kind of a slot-like receiver, and that's why I'm drafting him here. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say go with O.J. Howard, but I think Gary Barnidge is a solid tight end, unless I think he might be. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's a solid tight end, but the Browns wide receiver situation looked like this before free agency. Terrell Pryor, Josh Gordon could be coming back, and Corey Coleman. Then Terrell Pryor left. Then Mr. Josh Gordon may not be returning. So if Gordon doesn't return, and I think that's something they might plan for, adding John Ross would be perfect. Not only could Ross be a good secondary receiver with Coleman, he could also be a slot receiver if Josh Gordon does come back. And then you got a trio of receivers, you got a offensive line. You basically just need that quarterback, and Cody Kessler could very well show. I mean, Dak Prescott was the fourth round pick. Kessler was a third round pick, and he's played solid. You never know. Kessler could be a very solid player. Now at 13, the Arizona Cardinals select tight end O.J. Howard. Howard might be at this place he's a steal. I've seen he's probably a top 7 pick, and I'm seeing some people saying he might go to the Jets. But the Cardinals' offense last year was not terrible, but they threw a lot of interceptions. Now, I know a lot of people are saying they should go for someone like Patrick Mahomes or a backup quarterback or a young quarterback who would take on Carson Palmer's job when he retires. Or a wide receiver when Larry Fitzgerald retires. And I could see that, but I think the Cardinals are in a position where they can't hesitate. And I think a good move for them is to try and build up the future, but also try and improve in areas of weakness, such as tight end. The Cardinals don't really have a great tight end, so adding in someone like O.J. Howard, you have another threat for Carson Palmer, as well as a future a threat for whoever your quarterback is. You could always draft DeShone Kizer in the second round if he's available. You could always wait till next year as well. You could always, maybe, who knows. You already have David Johnson, one of the best, if not like top three running backs in the league. I mean, it's him, Bell, and Elliott, if you want to really look at it. So, yeah, the Cardinals could really do that. Howard had some really solid stats, and I think that they could be very good next year. Now, number 14, the Philadelphia Eagles finally get a defensive back, and they get cornerback Gareon Conley. Now, Conley is played alongside of Hooker and Lattimore. He also came in for Eli Apple when he was drafted last year to my Giants. So, the defense for the Eagles was pretty mediocre. I mean, yeah, you can look at the Eagles' offense and say the Carson Wentz had a solid start to the season, then kind of fell off the deep end. But he did play solid, and I think he is, second overall pick. You're going to give up on him this early? And he's pretty solid. A lot of people saying they need threats for him. Obviously, they got Alshon Jeffrey, so they've got that number one threat now. So defense-wise, why not draft Conley? Conley has some very solid stats playing alongside of Hooker and Lattimore, and I think put him in the big leagues, and he'll do great. I think the Eagles are getting a very solid defensive player here. They could always wait till later rounds, but who knows? They might need a cornerback and a safety. Number 15, the Indianapolis Colts select offensive tackle Ryan Ramczyk. Now, the Colts obviously were a very solid passing team next year. They were a very good passing team. But Andrew Luck, your franchise quarterback, who is one of the best in the league, was subjected to one of the worst offensive lines ever. Okay, maybe not the worst, but they gave up 44 sacks. You don't want your elite quarterback getting hit that much. Now, Ryan Ramczyk adds in a nice little tackle option. In my opinion, I think he is I like him a little more than Cam Robinson, but I think Robinson may go first. Now, adding Ramczyk, their offensive line would look like this. Ramczyk, Mewhort, Schwenke, Good, and then obviously I don't know who the right tackle would be. But it'd be pretty solid. I mean, maybe a few guys may need to step up, and they might have some protection. I mean, Luck already has plenty of threats. T.Y. Hilton, Dante Moncrief. Obviously the run game could use a boost, but I mean, with the offensive line, it'll help. And obviously their defense, again, could easily improve in the later rounds. Now, last but not least, the last pick I'm doing this video is the Baltimore Ravens, and they're going to be selecting running back Dalvin Cook. Cook is, in my opinion, the best running back in this draft. I mean, I like McCaffrey more because I'm a Giants fan. I think I might get him. But Cook's 2016 stats went something like this. 218 rushes for 1,765 yards and 19 touchdowns in 13 games. Those are some insane stats. And, the Ravens didn't have the greatest run offense last year, and Flacco was kind of struggling. So adding a person like Cook would really help. Especially maybe it might have propelled them into the playoffs. They might have gotten one of those wins against the Jets that they could. They lost to the Jets, so if they'd beaten the Jets, maybe they might. And the Bengals, they would have made the playoffs. I think so. Yeah, sucks to be you, doesn't it, Baltimore? But hey, Dalvin Cook's a great player, and I think he would benefit them greatly. So those are the first 16 picks in my mock draft. I'm gonna try and do another. I'm gonna do the next 16 picks soon. But yeah. Hopefully you enjoy this. What are your first 16 picks? I want to hear what you guys think about mine as well. So, yeah, leave that in the comments down below. And, yeah, hopefully you're excited for this mock draft. Or for the draft, I should say. Who do you want your team to pick? That's something I want to hear, people. Because I've heard a lot of, people having different opinions. I want to see what you guys think. So, thank you for watching. See you later.